Dive in the deep end, it's time to defend your movie.
Oh, hello, friends. Welcome to this week's episode of Defending Your Movie. I am your host, Jeremy Meyer. It is the last week of October, the last week of Bond month, as I guess I've been doing here. So I said at the beginning of the month that we were going to bookend this month with Bond movies because the new James Bond movie came out this month, and it was the movie I was most excited for in 2020 that ended up getting pushed back because of the pandemic, and it finally got a release date. And so when I invited my guest on to do a Bond movie, we decided to talk about the movies that were each other's least favorites, and we kind of flip-flopped and we're able to look at, each other's least favorite Bond movie from a different perspective. So at the beginning of the month, we covered my least favorite, Thunderball. And this week, we are covering Allen's least favorite, which my guess is Allen Kesinger, returning again. His least favorite film, Diamonds Are Forever. Which to me is a fun little romp of a Bond film. Now, I should point out, at the time of recording this episode, I had not seen the new Bond movie yet. As of recording this intro, however, I have. I finally went and saw No Time to Die in the theater. It's the first movie I've seen in the theater since Fast 9, only second movie I've seen during the pandemic. There was like 5 or 6 other people in the theater. So pretty quiet experience, which I like. But I hope the movie does well. It's been reviewing pretty well. And I have to say, I really enjoyed it. It is not a perfect film, but it is a perfect send-off for the Daniel Craig era of Bond. I think if you are a Bond fan, you'll probably like it. If you have liked the Daniel Craig movies, if you've loved some of them, I think you'll be a fan of this one. It's a really good, really fun movie, and best of all, like, Daniel Craig is kind of giving it his all and leaving it all on the table in this one, so I think it was really good. I haven't seen a lot of new movies this year, but as I'm recording this, I'm actually halfway through Dune at the moment, which I should be finishing right now, and I just saw Halloween Kills this weekend, and I saw the James Bond movie like a few weeks ago. So I'm trying to wrap up a lot of the 2021 movies here, but I was super excited for Bond last year, and currently, as I have not finished Dune, and I still got some other movies to see, I will say No Time to Die currently sits as my favorite movie of the year. Now, I definitely think there are a couple movies I still want to watch that might take that one down, but currently, as it sits, No Time to Die, my number one movie of 2021, which is nice because it was my most anticipated of 2020. So, and honestly, I'd have to look back at what were my 2020 favorite movies. It honestly might have been this if I had seen it when it was supposed to come out. But I digress. As it is, it did not come out last year. But here we are. October, the month of Bond. And weird that I did not have the foresight to do any horror films. Because why would you do horror films in the month of Halloween? Who knows? But, yeah, I don't know. I just didn't do any. I haven't really had many horror movies on here, but spoiler alert, I think we will be talking about that Halloween movie on this episode. Yeah, so I'm not going to talk much about that, but I did see Halloween Kills, and I have some thoughts. But we're talking about Bond this episode, so without further ado, let's get the plugs out of the way and get into Diamonds Are Forever. So, follow us on social media at Defending Movie on Twitter and Instagram. Follow us on Patreon at patreon.com/defendingmovie. And check out our merch store. I just uploaded a new design, a Matrix-inspired design. Kind of a similar one that I had for my last podcast, but now for this podcast. So be sure to go to belowthecollar.com/defendingyourmovie and check out our new t-shirt. Maybe pick one up before you go see The Matrix. We'll do this. If you buy a shirt and you go see The Matrix and take a picture and post it with the shirt, I will send you one free shirt of your choosing from ProWrestlingTees.com. So we'll do that. buy a shirt, go to a movie theater and see it. If you send me the photo, I'll send you a free T-shirt. We'll start with, if you buy the Matrix shirt and go see the Matrix, we might make this a regular thing. So be on the lookout for more opportunities to win a free wrestling T-shirt if that's your jam, or maybe I can even do a shirt from Below the Collar. There's a lot of other really cool stuff on there. But yeah. Oh, also want to point out, I was reading a book recently, and it's a film book that I think a lot of people will like. I just want to look up the author's name to make sure I get it right. I read a lot of film books, and I'm always looking for more stuff to help me with like my writing or my film perspectives. So recently I was just reading a book, The Films of Steven Spielberg by Michael Jolls or Joels. It's Jolls. Available on Amazon, but it's a fun little retrospective look at the filmography of Steven Spielberg, and one of the greatest directors of our lifetime. But it's been a fun book, and I'm actually thinking about reaching out to the author to see if he might want to be on the show. So keep an eye out for that. But without further ado, let's get into Diamonds Are Forever. Sorry, man. I'm happy to welcome you back for some more James Bond talk.
It's good to be back. This has been really fun. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I always love having you. You're a fun guest. But it's James Bond month, and at this point, at the beginning of the month, we talked about Thunderball, and now we're going to talk about my choice for the month, which is Diamonds Are Forever.
And can I reiterate that I am very happy to be here?
Okay, so you are notoriously not a fan of this one.
Okay, so before we did this, yes, was not a fan. I think from what I remember, this movie it's represented such a big tonal shift from the previous Sean Connery films, which, these movies are ridiculous, but like Dr. No, Goldfinger, From Russia with Love, Thunderball, and You Only Live Twice. I mean, that had a particular very specific timbre, a pitch to it, as it were.
Yes.
And whereas Diamonds Are Forever, it was, they got Sean Connery back. They paid him like $3 million or some ridiculous amount.
1.25.
Yeah.
I was actually, which at the time I think was the highest anyone had ever been paid for a movie.
Yeah. And it just seemed to me like this was the perfect shoe-in to the Roger Moore years, which those are movies I just cannot stand anymore. And so literally I felt, and like, I love doing this. I've loved doing this for you, but I literally kind of felt like I was going to be drag kicking and screaming to this. And I watched it the other day, and I think maybe I'm a little turned around on it.
All right, that's what I was hoping to hear.
I mean, there's still parts of it. Like, I think the movie, this is stuff we'll get into, but I the first half of this movie, like the first act of this movie, is great. The second act, when he gets into Vegas, it's like, okay. And then the beginning of the third act, where kind of like things are laid out on the table, I'm like, oh, okay, all right, okay. So yeah, I gotta say, like, I'm of a different mind now.
Yeah, so did you see? It's because I know you weren't like watching these when they came out, because I don't think we were even born yet. But when did you see them in order at this point? Like, did you see Honor, Majesty, Secret Service before this one?
Yes. So what I did when GoldenEye came out, that was when there was like this big James Bond renaissance, because like it was the first movie in a good long while, because Living Daylights, that had to have been what, like 88, 89, and then GoldenEye came out.
Well, License to Kill came out 89.
Okay.
That was, and then it was 95 when GoldenEye
Right.
came out. There was a big gap in there.
And I think because GoldenEye did really well, that there was this sudden kind of big popularity for James Bond again, and so UA they re-released all of the films on VHS, and I had all of them, and I was
Is that when they had like the black boxes with the gold lettering and stuff?
not the ones that I had. They were just like selling like the individual tapes. And it was just like the same kind of white text font on the spines for each one. Nothing really, nothing like the new recent releases that they have now, which I think are really slick. But yeah, these just generic covers, like not even the movie posters, just very generic kind of covers.
Yeah.
So, and yes, had been watching them through, and yes, I had watched On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and I hated that because Sean Connery wasn't in it. And so it was like, okay, I got to get through this, and then hey, Sean Connery comes back. This is great. And then it was like, what is this movie?
Well, it's so obvious that he doesn't want to be there. And, so I think On Her Majesty's Secret Service is a great movie with a horrible actor playing James Bond. Like, to me, George Lazenby is at the bottom of the list when it comes to Bond actors.
Same here.
But like so my encounter with this movie was similar. I was marathoning them in order, and I was aware of like the stories behind the movies at this point, because this was only like 5 years ago that I did this. And On Her Majesty's Secret Service was kind of tough to get through, mostly because of Lazenby. But when I look back on it, I was like the events in that movie are really good. And this one, I think the reason I enjoyed it so much, my initial viewing, was because it was such a break in the marathon of that tone, because I literally was doing them like one every 2 days, because I was watching them on my commutes and like finishing them when I got home. So it was like watch half of it on the train on the way to work and back, and then finish it at home, and then the next day just roll into the next one. And by the time I got to this, because this is like the seventh or eighth movie down already, I think I just really enjoyed the goofiness of this movie, because it is really goofy.
Yeah.
I was noticing watching it this time around that this feels most like an Austin Powers movie without actually like being a parody.
Right. To me, it feels very like this is. If it wasn't Sean Connery, like in a different timeline, this would be a Roger Moore movie, and it would be like, yeah, of course it is, because yeah, you're right, because it's silly, it's goofy, it's kind of it's less debonair, less we're going to exotic locations, less kind of big manipulative plots to, hey, we're going to Vegas, hey, we're using diamonds for a space laser, and here's Sean Connery in the first 10 minutes of the movie basically severely beating up or killing people.
Oh, the opening of this movie is fantastic, especially like the whole thing of they're not showing his face because they're going for the big reveal that Connery's back, and just watching this faceless person just beat up all these random people,
strangles a woman with her bikini top,
Yeah, which part of this is the whole idea of it being in Vegas, but this feels like the sleaziest.
Oh,
Bond
most
movie.
certainly.
It has the most skin, I think.
Yeah.
There's a lot of girls in bikinis. And HD is, I guess, kind to this movie. If you're a young person and you see things that you maybe didn't see in the original version.
There is certainly a scene that there is clarity through sheer fabric that if you look real good, then you'll. It's almost shocking that what you can see.
Yeah, and like it's just back then the clarity wasn't so good, and you wouldn't notice like, oh, you can totally see that girl's nipple through her shirt.
Yeah.
And I guess that happens in some of the movies in the like opening title sequences as well when they got up-res to HD.
Right.
It's just something you don't think about. But yeah, like I would definitely put money down that I think Bond maybe like has sex in this movie more than any other Bond film. And like, yeah, there are just half naked women all over this movie, and I guess it fits with it being set in Vegas of all places.
Yeah, and like it's got that Vegas sleaze. Every time they showed a sequence where the characters are walking through the casino, like I wrinkled my nose because it's like I could smell the cigarettes. I could
absolutely
smell the cigarettes and the desperation.
As somebody who went to Vegas for the first time 2 years ago, like just looking at it, it's a whole different perspective this time.
Yeah. That being said, I have to say again, watching this, and I don't know what, but holy cow, like Jill St. John makes a total like incredible entrance in this movie. Like she is
amazing in this
gorgeous.
movie.
And for as ridiculous as her character is, so does Lana Wood. In like the 5 minutes that she's in this movie. But yeah, no, Jill St. John, like she kind of went up on my list for Bond girls because she makes an amazing entrance. I kind of, her character kind of grates on me towards the end. Just I think a lot of
she's a really silly character, but she's like a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
So it's this really weird thing. And yeah, you're right. Like in her entrance, you're just like, oh, look at this like woman involved in this diamond smuggling, and it's like this beautiful, almost like femme fatale like character. And then she goes on to have some of the most ridiculous lines in the movie. Like there are two quotes I always think of, which is "blow up your pants." Yep. Which what does that even mean?
She says that to a kid, no less.
Yeah, and then that whole sequence when they're at the gas station or whatever, and she's trying to distract the cars. Like everything she says there is just ridiculous.
Which I mean, like product of the time too, because it's like, oh yeah, they have like. They've got the stamps to get gas and all this stuff. I'm like, what is she even talking about? Like, it certainly does not play today. But she is ridiculous.
Yeah, like every time I'm always just fascinated by like the degradation of her character and just like to the point at the end where Bond like slips the tape in her underwear. He just gives her the sly like bitch. Like Connery's just not giving a fuck in this, and it's kind of makes it more fun.
It comes off. Yeah, he definitely comes off like, hey, guess who just got paid $1.5 million to be here? This 50-year-old man with these like gorgeous young women. I was reading up as I am wont to do. I was reading up trivia for the movie, and it was funny to hear that like Sean Connery and a bunch of other people were like, yeah, dude, we're in Vegas. We didn't sleep. We just gambled all day and went golfing all weekend and just kind of living it up, in that old Vegas lifestyle. But yeah, I mean, it makes me wonder if they were like, okay, we'll pay you $1.5 million and we're sending you to Vegas, and be like, okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean, he got a fat paycheck, and he got a 2-picture deal with, I think it was United Artisan that was involved with this. And like he literally just used all that money to open a charity.
Yeah.
Like it was one of those things he just didn't want to do it, and like so he just gave them this, high salary, and they were just like, okay, money's no option. Because like I don't even think On Her Majesty's Secret Service was like I don't think it definitely wasn't a bomb. Like no James Bond movie has ever bombed. Right. But I guess we'll see what happens with this new one.
Again, those Roger Moore ones, I'd be shocked if they didn't bomb, because those are terrible. But I mean, I was kind of surprised too, because I went to see, okay, how did this movie do, and it did real well. It reviewed and did well at the box office. So.
Yeah, like so I just looked. On Her Majesty's Secret Service made like $80 million, and You Only Live Twice, which came before it, was at 111. So it went down a little bit, and then this one made like 117 or something.
And that kind of makes sense, because if you're saying that, hey, you want to go see that new Bond movie? Oh yeah, I love Sean Connery. Well, no, he's not in it. And like, well, yeah, I want to see it. But it's the only reason I give that movie the time of day is because it's like my mom's absolute favorite Bond movie. But yeah, it was just like coming off of You Only Live Twice, losing Connery, seeing this new guy, it kind of makes sense that it didn't do as financially well.
Yeah, and I think it reviewed pretty well, but just like the box office wasn't as strong.
Yeah.
And then this one, it ticked up because you get Connery back, and I'm sure that was all over the advertising. But like this movie just has such a wild cast of characters.
And it's got a vibe too. It's got a I remember like not really paying attention to the plot back then. It's just like, oh, something to do with...
I honestly don't really pay attention to it now.
Right. Well,
like,
but
the plot kind of doesn't matter.
But that's the thing. It's just like I didn't pay attention to it then, and this time I like really paid attention. It's like, because before rewatching it, like I had just like scenes in my head where you had these two assassins who are like trying to smuggle diamonds, and I'm like, why are they doing this, and why are they meeting up with the old lady and all that? And like this time I like decided to really pay attention to it. I'm like, oh, okay, there's a reason for all this. I mean, it's flimsy, and at the end of the day,
yeah,
you're not really going to Bond movies for plot, but still it's nice to be able to kind of like finally understand what is going on, why things are the way they are, why the characters are there. Why, so yeah, it's interesting because this time it made a lot more sense.
Yeah, like, going in for another watch, it's easier to like, and for me, I kind of did the opposite of like, oh, well, I paid attention to that stuff last time. So this time I was kind of just letting the movie wash over me. And I did notice, like, as you said, the second act of this movie is a bit of a slog. Like once you're kind of in Vegas, it takes a little bit to like kind of keep it interesting and keep it going. Yeah. But like, a lot of this movie just feels like a joke. And like the whole "you killed James Bond" and like, what is going on in this movie? That's kind of why I love
the
it.
whole abrupt ending to one of the most tense Bond escapes, where he's in the coffin in the cremator, and it just ends, and he's able to just like walk away after adjusting his suit and after taking all this money. It's just it's bizarre. It's really bizarre.
I would also say the ending of the movie is very abrupt as well, which I remember the first time I watched it, I actually really enjoy the kind of fight on the oil platform. I was like, oh, this is kind of my favorite stuff in some of these older Bond movies, is when it just turns into like a war between like bad guys and like the Secret Service. Because even in the last movie we talked about, Thunderball has that. It's just all happening underwater and is not as exciting. But in this one, they have like helicopters shooting missiles, and like he's swinging Blofeld on this crane, and then it just cuts to a cruise ship like immediately. Yeah, and it's just like, oh, that's done now.
Sean Connery said he was tired and didn't want to do it anymore, and he left. Yeah. But I mean, as far as like, big battle final locales, an oil rig is certainly fascinating. Like, it's interesting. It's perilous, But yeah, and then there's just that little coda on the yacht with Mr. Kidd and Mr.
Wint and Mr. Kidd,
which
I love these characters.
Again, back in the day, I had no idea. Like, I didn't really think much about these movies, especially since I like had an immediate dislike for Diamonds Are Forever. But again, watching it now, like, hey, here's a Bond movie with like queer characters, and they don't play it off as a big kind of like, they're not like these kind of mincing characters. They're menacing, like and for the most part, like, you're seeing these two characters, and like straight up there's just sort of like are
what is up,
like, are these guys queer? Are they just being quirky? And I mean, there's just that one sequence in the airplane when he says that, hey, she looks, pretty attractive for a woman, and he kind of gives her a look.
Kind of like share a look.
But like, again, like, for them to kind of portray those characters who they are and not just treat it as one big like gag, I mean, it's kind of progressive.
Yeah, in a weird way it is. I mean, it's kind of just heavily implied.
Yeah.
Like, you definitely watch this movie and like, oh, there's something up with these guys. And I want to say if the actors have even said they have no idea.
Well,
like
okay, so again, trivia. Both the actors, which one of them was a jazz musician. He was a bass player. And the other one is Crispin Glover's dad. I had no
Bruce
idea.
Glover.
Yeah.
Once you know and you look at that face,
exactly,
you totally see it.
exactly. But yeah, they had said that, like, in an interview, like in the 90s, they said, "Oh yeah, no, when we were, we had convinced Sean Connery that these characters were like incredibly homosexual, and like the actors themselves." And he said that he was on an airplane and he was flirting with a stewardess. And on that same plane was Sean Connery, and I can hear it, like, and I even said it when I read it, but he had said that he had someone come up to him with a Scottish accent, say, "You son of a bitch," and it was Sean Connery on the same plane.
That's hilarious. Also, Bruce Glover, notoriously kind of an asshole on set, and was always stealing the other guy Putter Smith's lines.
Oh, really?
Because he wasn't really an actor, and Glover was. So Glover was kind of
what a jerk.
Overstepping. Yeah. There's another podcast. I don't think it runs anymore, but the episodes are probably still available, called "I Was There Too." Mm-hmm. And it's what's his name? He produces the Conan podcast now. Matt Gorley.
Oh, okay.
He would just interview people who were kind of like bit parts in movies.
Oh, that's cool.
And stuff. And that was he's a huge Bond fan, so that was one of his Bond gets was Putter Smith, who was
awesome.
Mr. Kidd, and he talked a lot about that.
Well, that sucks, but now I have a renewed love for those characters.
Yeah, like I watch this movie the same way I watch like a Fast and Furious movie. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously the action is not to the same degree, but they're just goofy and goofy fun.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I like about it. And I think, the Vegas setting and the weird characters, like you have Jimmy, the guy who invented Jimmy Dean's sausage in this movie, or the brand anyway. Yeah. And it's just such this weird cast.
You've got James Bond riding a moon buggy across the desert.
Yeah, and this, like, why are they filming a moon thing here? And why are these guys moving like they are on the moon while they're chasing them?
That is my most favorite thing out of that entire scene. Is you've got the two guys who are like walking around, they're simulated in gravity, and like here comes James just running across the stage, followed by the guards, and just like, what the hell?
They're yelling at him like, "Stop him!" And they're just like bouncing back and forth. Like, what is happening?
God, yeah, this movie is so weird. But but again, I kind of like, I was really into the first act, the whole like kind of diamond stuff, and again, it's setting up a really interesting premise, because you have this guy saying, "Oh yeah, we mine all of our diamonds down in Africa," carefully neglecting the whole blood diamonds thing. But like we have
very carefully,
we have all this stuff, we have all this security, and it's perfect system, and everybody is so good to keep up all the security, and you're literally watching as people are smuggling diamonds out of the mine and giving them to a dentist who's paying these guys, who's then shipping the diamonds off to one place or another. And like it's intrigue, it's a very interesting smuggling operation, and then
I like how they show it as they're explaining it.
Yeah,
like
that's neat.
As step by step as they're going through, they're editing along with it.
They don't treat it like, oh my god, the big revelation is that this is a smuggling operation and it's not on the up and up. And it's like, you would expect to kind of see that as a big reveal, when, like, who cares? That's not the point of the movie. The point is, like, they're on, like, the authorities are onto this ring and they're trying to shut it down. That's why they're killing all these people. It's not just indiscriminate, like, kill the messenger kind of thing. It's just like that you've got these two guys who are basically settling up all these loose ends. Why? We don't know until the big reveal that, who Blofeld, who we thought had died at the beginning of the movie,
for the second
time, is still alive, and now he has clones.
Yeah,
or plastic surgery alterations of other people.
Which I'm going to say something that is maybe a very controversial opinion. I really like Charles Gray as Blofeld.
No, he's good. He's really good. I had forgotten that he plays one of the characters in You Only Live Twice. But no, he's good. I liked him. I like him much better than Donald Pleasance. That's for sure.
I think a lot of people like Telly Savalas from On Her Majesty's Secret Service, but
that's right.
I always just thought that portrayal was weird, and I never liked. And this, I guess, is by nature of they did the books out of order. Right. But the fact that Blofeld and Bond had met in You Only Live Twice, but then in On Her Majesty's Secret Service don't seem to know what each other look like. But I guess it's because they stuck to the books, but they did the books out of order. Right. But, like, in the movies, it was always, like, weird continuity-wise.
Well, again, On Her Majesty's Secret Service is a weird movie, so, you know.
It is. Like, I think it's really good, but that whole middle section where Bond's pretending to be, like, this other guy is, like, just a very strange part of that movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, yeah, like, I like Charles Gray, and, like, I like how the movie goes from... You know, you kind of get the Blofeld thing out of the way in the beginning, which leads to one of my favorite Bernard Lee M moments where James Bond is out there avenging the death of his wife. And then when he's done, he gets back and M is like chastising him. It's like, oh, well, now maybe we can get some honest work out of you. It's like, this guy was just out chasing down the world's most notorious terrorist and like allegedly killed him. And you're mad about it.
Yeah,
like Bernard Lee is just such a good like pissed off M.
Bernard Lee was always my favorite M.
I was always a partial to Dame Judi Dench, but I am actually a big fan of what's his name that's currently doing it, Ralph Fiennes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like I think he's doing a great job.
That's cool. He can do no wrong. I like Ralph Fiennes.
Yeah. Oh, he's always amazing.
Yeah.
Also, Desmond Llewellyn as Q, just
always
robbing Vegas.
Always the best. But yeah, just that. Yeah, I love that. That's his biggest contribution to the film is he's got this little thing that lets him cheat at the slots. It's a very cute thing.
Which I think he only that's like he has like one scene in this movie and then that little bit.
Yeah,
like,
he's got the bit with the fingerprint and then
yeah, like I always am bummed when we don't have a scene where Q is literally like dishing out gadgets and instead just kind of showing up to explain something.
Right. And it's funny to see the evolution of that like element because the first time you see him is in From Russia with Love, and it's a very no nonsense. Here's your attaché case. Here's where the knife comes out. Here's where you have like your gold bullion or whatever. Here's your the smoke grenade shaped as a deodorant. Okay, bye, see ya. And now it's like, you know, just because it's so fresh in my mind, like when GoldenEye, like an entire like section of that film is devoted to like let's show all the gadgets, let's do crazy stuff with the gadgets, and the crazier the better. Here's a Lotus that can go underwater, and the classic the garrote from the watch stuff. It's become a staple, like just as like okay, what's the new hot car that's going to be advertised in this Bond movie? It's like, what is Q going to do?
Yeah, I think I'll go on record and say I think Q and Brosnan have like the best scenes together.
Absolutely.
Like I think all the Q scenes in the Brosnan movies are my favorite.
Yeah, hands down.
And I think those two just had really great chemistry. Like they seemed like they were probably really good friends on set. And like, was it Goldeneye where he picks up the sandwich? He's like, that's my lunch. And The World Is Not Enough has like one of my favorite cold opens where he steals Q's like boat.
Yes.
And he's like, oh, that was my vacation package or whatever. Like Desmond Llewellyn, like there are a couple Bond movies where he is just so underutilized, and this is definitely one of them.
Yeah. But like he's there though. Like you get to see him, and the scenes that at least the one with the slot machines is like that's a nice kind of like okay, we don't have him for a gadget scene, but at least can we kind of get him in? Can we get him on board with the inherent goofiness of this movie? And what's goofier than seeing an elephant win on a slot machine? It's seeing Q use his genius to find ways to hack all these machines.
Yeah. And Jill St. John, or Tiffany Case, her character's name, she like bumps into him, just calls him Mr. Q, and is just like so concerned, like, am I getting arrested after this? Like, there's just this whole little bit of the movie where she's like, I don't know where I should be because I might go to jail.
Right. Oh man.
Which, yeah, that's definitely like kind of when her character starts sliding a bit, is like after it's revealed that who Bond actually is.
Yeah, and like there's a, because they kind of prop her up as being this like fiery independent woman who can hold her own and can tussle with the best of them, and it's not until like she like they're, oh, why are we in the bridal suite? She starts talking all breathlessly, and then and Felix shows up, and she's like suggestively covered in this bearskin rug or whatever, and it's like they completely like break down her character, and like, and it's never really feels clear that like, oh, she's just kind of putting up this act. It just kind of feels like, well, James Bond has tamed her, and now she's this, she's just kind of this like, hanging onto his leg through that entire scene. And it rubs me the wrong way.
Well, he famously turned a lesbian in Goldfinger.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
That James Bond is very powerful with the women.
Yeah.
Some of our favorite movies don't always hold up 100%.
He practically rapes that poor woman.
I mean, in just that movie, yeah.
Gosh, it's coming back now. Oh, man.
Also, he just, like, completely backhands Tiffany Case in this movie at one point.
Yeah.
Like, once things start getting serious, he just hits her, like, right away. Like I said, this is the sleaziest Bond movie. It is the most misogynistic. And, like, I guess
they throw that poor woman up the window.
Yeah, and then he points out the fact
I didn't know there was a pool down there.
Yeah, like he was literally going to kill her, and then later she's killed in a pool. But, like, and even going back to Goldfinger, like they were trying to recapture the magic of Goldfinger with this one, because they brought Connery back. They hired the same director. They had this Shirley Bassey doing the music again, which I will say Diamonds Are Forever is in my top 10.
It is a good theme song. It is a good theme song.
It's really good. And way better than that Kanye song. But they hired as many people as they could from Goldfinger, and it's such a different movie.
It is. It really is. And
I have a hard time believing this comes from the same director.
Yeah, again, it's like we said, its tone is so different from the previous ones. It's if those Bond movies were taking themselves seriously, this one clearly is not.
And I wonder where that came from. So Guy Hamilton was the director. He did Goldfinger, and then he did this one, and then the next two with Roger Moore. He did Live and Let Die and The Man with the Golden Gun. And The Man with the Golden Gun is another really kind of cheesy movie.
Yeah, that movie is, if it wasn't for Christopher Lee, like that movie is, even with Christopher Lee, that movie is awful.
Christopher Lee's kind of hamming it up.
Yeah, but it's like, but at least Christopher Lee, like, you know what you get with Christopher Lee, and like he himself can do no wrong. He has such a presence and a charming malevolence to him that like he is a fantastic Bond villain. But that movie is garbage. It's just straight up garbage. Like it's got a great premise, but that movie is just straight up garbage.
Yeah, I would like to see a like kind of modern Bond movie take that same premise of like an assassin hunting Bond.
Yeah.
I do like that movie. It is kind of lower on my list for Roger Moore, but I think Live and Let Die is actually one of his better. Like,
sure, yeah.
He has a couple that are a little more serious, and I would say Live and Let Die and The Spy Who Loved Me are kind of like top tier Roger Moore,
Yeah.
and then you can kind of just group everything
Exactly.
else together.
That's most certainly how I feel. Yeah,
But the Roger Moore era definitely is where people bring in the camp to Bond. And it really feels like when I was watching this one that it all started here.
Yes, most definitely.
And I don't know, maybe it was because this one made more money than the previous one. And, you know, like maybe it was because of just Connery's performance, and maybe that's kind of just shaped what this movie turned into, and they just decided to run with it.
Yeah, and I think just like the whole kind of jet set flavor of the 60s just kind of like went away, and I don't know, just this sort of, you know, 70s sort of sensibility, and I mean, they're very different. They're very different film, like between the decades are very different tonally. And like, I don't know, like what other kind of movies that came out that were popular that maybe have like influenced the sort of like goofball tone of some of these Roger Moore ones.
Yeah, and I was kind of just clicking through these Roger Moore movies to look at the box office returns, and Live and Let Die did huge. It did 160, and then Man with the Golden Gun did like 97, and then The Spy Who Loved Me is at like 185. So the box office is kind of responding the way we are looking at these movies.
Yeah.
Like, people like the more serious Roger Moore, it seems like.
And like, how so taking those numbers, what were the box offices for the two Timothy Dalton ones? Because those were certainly more serious. In fact, a lot more violent too.
Living Daylight's 191.
Okay.
And let's see, License to Kill, License to Kill was summer of '89. That was Batman, Last Crusade.
That's right.
It was. It's the summer that butchered.
Yeah.
But box office still 156.
Okay. All right. That's really impressive.
That's not bad.
Yeah. God, yeah, the summer of '89. Yeah.
But like, you look at it, and so this movie had a budget of like $7 million and made like 116.
Jeez.
License to Kill had a budget of 32 and made 156.
Wow.
Yeah, you definitely feel the 60s are left behind in this movie.
Yeah. It is.
And, you know, this is the first one I think that has a major amount of time in the States. Goldfinger goes to the States, but not for very long.
But it's like the superficial. It's Miami and like Kentucky.
Yeah.
It's like these kind of like at the time, these kind of exotic Americana locales. You know, where it's like it's Miami Beach. That's all you need to say. And then like Kentucky, the land of you know, bourbon and horse racing. These sort of like classic Americana hotspots. But yeah, I mean, the movies come off less exotic than that initial batch.
Wow, I just noticed on the cast list, because she wasn't famous at the time, so it's listed as a cameo. But Cassandra Peterson was in this movie, who you might know as Elvira.
Really, who was she?
She was a Vegas dancer. Oh. And I believe she was in real life at one point. So she literally might have just been a Vegas dancer. And then she, you know, got a role.
That's funny.
Yeah, which, you know, she just had a book come out, so that's timely.
Yeah. And like they put the Elvira movie on Hulu. Need to watch that.
It's not good.
I can't imagine it would be.
It's really bad, but I watched it like a few months ago or something, maybe a little longer ago. I remember seeing it a bit as a kid, and I was like, oh, you know, maybe it's fun now as an adult. It only works because she is so funny and like charismatic. Yeah. The movie is awful, but it works because of her.
Sure.
Yeah, and also just the jokes are terrible, which... Speaking of jokes, the stand-up comedian scene in this movie is just the funniest thing.
Isn't that just the weirdest thing too? How like it's that bizarre sequence in the funeral home, and this dude shows up. He's yelling at him about diamonds, and then like, oh hey, he's a stand-up comic. I'm like, what? Like,
Yeah,
what?
and
I mean,
he's telling the worst
and
jokes.
it's like, I don't know what they're trying to prove. How it's just like, oh, how the smuggling ring is just like getting all these nondescript people. But again, it's such a non sequitur, that it's like, oh, we've got this comedian and this elderly school teacher as part of this international diamond smuggling ring.
I guess it made sense in their head. Like, is this one based on a book? Yeah, okay, there is a Diamonds Are Forever book. I wonder if the plot is like the same in the book. Oh, which actually, just clicking on the Wikipedia for the book, the first thing I see is 2 homosexual thugs went and kid. So in the book, they are straight up homosexual.
Okay, well, there we go.
Which, from my understanding, Ian Fleming writes a lot of a lot of villains in his books are things like that because he was not a big fan of that kind of stuff. So
I guess it's all the more impressive then that they could have easily turned up the dial, but they didn't. So I have a renewed appreciation for the depiction of those characters.
Which, something that I love about this film that kind of ties into those characters is this movie has the best people like reacting with sound effects. Starting from when they put the scorpion in the guy's back and just the noise he just and like there's a lot of weird just people making noises in this movie that it's just really funny. And like I don't think it was meant to be.
Oh man, yeah, that's right.
Because I think even at the end when Bond, because there's always, this is one of like 5 or 6 Bond movies where, hey, the villain is dispatched, but there's like a henchman still left to like kind of attack them, and they attack him on the cruise ship. But I think Bond like pulls the underwear of one of them, and he's like, ooh,
yes,
like as they do it.
Yeah, God. Yeah.
Like there's like at least 5 or 6 moments in this movie of people just like reacting like that.
Bizarre Foley
and like,
work.
I just totally wonder if this was on purpose. Like I have this book. I don't know where it is. I'm gonna have to find it. But it is literally a book about the production of the entire James Bond franchise up until I think Skyfall. I don't know if Spectre is in it or not, but like each chapter is just like a different movie, and I kind of just want to skip to I've never read it, but I want to skip to this movie and just read like what was going on.
Right. Yep.
But it's also an unofficial style book, so I don't know how much information is actually in there. But yeah, this is it's. I understand why your first time seeing it, it's kind of a shock of what this franchise has been up until this point.
Yeah.
And I wonder if some people feel that way about Moonraker.
Ugh.
Which I like the Roger Moore movies more than you do, but I think everybody can agree on.
Yeah,
Moonraker.
I think there's a nice kind of like universal hatred. But I mean, Moonraker's not the first time they introduced Jaws, is it?
No, he is in The Spy Who Loved Me, and he's actually like awesome in that one.
Yeah.
He's like scary, and then Moonraker kind of turns him into a joke.
Yeah. But what a great concept for a character.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's like, hey, if you thought the underwater fight in Thunderball was boring, here's a 0G fight for you.
Oh my god, Moonraker is one of the only Bond movies I never want to watch again. And like, I know it has its fans, but I think they like it because it is bad, so they probably understand where I'm coming from. But yeah, like and I'll say Thunderball was the other movie on that list, but after we watched it again, I'm like, you know what? I think I'm kind of on board with Thunderball.
See? Yeah. And just how I'm back on board with Diamonds Are Forever.
Yeah, I've been having a weird thing this last few years where I've been revisiting movies that I used to think were not kind of great or I heard a lot of people say were bad. And I'm kind of coming to him now being like, you know what? Maybe we just need to watch every movie twice.
And you know what? A movie can still be really bad, but if you're enjoying it, that's great. That's fine. Like,
yeah,
you can like bad things.
I don't think this is like a good movie.
Right.
But it's a fun movie. And I don't know.
It's a fun
I think,
Bond movie.
Yeah.
On top of
and
that.
it does have good Bond stuff in it. I legitimately, like, I remember watching it the first time, and I was watching it on like a handheld device with headphones, so I'm kind of in the experience because I'm holding it in my face. But when he's climbing up the elevator shaft and into the building, I legitimately got like anxiety,
right?
Because like I'm heights are not my thing. That
did not
like one thing about
that
me.
did not happen to me with this recent watch through, because like I laugh when he does that, especially because he's standing there and be like, "Hey, I'm James Bond. I'm on top of an elevator that's going up. Oh, holy crap! Here comes the roof." And I'm like, "What did you think was going to happen, man?" Like,
yeah. But it's not even so much the part on the elevator; it's the part afterwards where he's trying to like climb across the windows of the building. Like that scene in particular. Like because it's pretty late in the movie, so like by the first time I was watching it, I'm like holding the screen right in front of my face, and I'm just in this scene, and I'm just like I know this is fake, but this is totally working on me, and I am feeling the heights anxiety right now. Also, the first time I've ever heard of a gun referred to as a hog leg.
Yes.
Which that character, I can't remember the character's name, but the Jimmy Dean actor, Willard White, that's it. He's kind of this like fake Howard Hughes type character, just this rich guy. He is a lot of fun. And like just again plays into just like the cast of characters in this movie is just completely silly. And like I think because everybody is kind of working on that level, even Connery is kind of like outlandish in this one. And I love how smug he is. Like his response to Jill St. John when she's like, "Oh, you killed James Bond." And he's like, "Oh, is that who that was?" like it totally works.
Yeah, it does.
I totally, and I'll say this time around, I was a little more bored with it than the first time. But by the time the ending rolls around, I'm all in.
Yeah,
it's so ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it has its slow moments, but it has its good moments. So,
yeah,
but
and even when it's at its worst, like the fact that it's kind of just off the rails all the time keeps it entertaining.
It is endearing. It endears itself.
And we've said all this and haven't even mentioned Bambi and Thumper this whole time.
Because, like, of all the ridiculous things.
Yeah, somehow I was like, "Oh, this is actually a cool concept." If just their execution of it feels awkward. Right. But yeah, watching Connery just get like beat up by these two women.
Yeah. Like, yeah. No, that again, just for as often as he's like sleeping around, raping pussy galore, and yeah, it is.
That sounded so bad.
But that's what he does.
I mean, that's her name. No, like her name with that sentence, like out of context. That's what sounds so bad.
You know what, Jeremy? I think these movies might be ridiculous.
Oh my god, are these misogynist?
Yeah, right. So yeah, so seeing Sean Connery get the shit kicked out of him by these two women is kind of great. But don't worry, he comes out on top, and then he's in a pool with them. And they're like, "Oh, James."
Yeah, and just like shrugging their shoulders, just like drowning these two women.
God.
Which also the ever changing casting of Felix Leiter continues in this movie. Which I can't remember. I think it was a James Bond podcast I listened to, but they're like, "Oh, it's great that Felix is a character that Bond always has to like say his name in excitement when he shows up, just so you know who he is, because it's always someone different." And like, not only that, but they cast in different ages all the time.
Yes, they do.
Like,
yeah,
he's super old in I think Goldfinger. And then I also in I think Live and Let Die. He's like an older actor. But then you look at Dr. No and it's like this handsome young dude,
Right, yeah.
like kind of the same age as Connery.
Yeah. And I think it's the same actor for Thunderball too.
Yeah, he did a couple of them. But yeah, and that's also another character that has been cast with people who have played other people in the franchise, I believe. Like somebody who was like a goon in one movie is Felix Leiter, like 3 movies down.
And then Living Daylights comes in where they kill Felix Leiter's fiance.
Yeah, in like the most grotesque and insane way. Oh no, he gets his leg.
He gets his
off,
leg bitten off by a shark by the bad guy from Goonies.
Yeah,
but I gotta say,
movie's...
of the new Bond, the Craig Bonds, I really do like Jeffrey Wright as Felix.
Oh no, he's great, and I believe he's in the new one. I think so.
I would hope so, because then they and then so for the next Bond movies, they totally have to recast him again. That needs to be the tradition.
I'm seeing the new one tomorrow, and I've very much avoided. I've looked at reviews and just seen people say like it's a great ending and it's a great send off, but I don't know what that means. Right. And obviously they're going to recast. The question is, do they continue? Like, will they keep these characters, minus Daniel Craig, and just have a new Bond and kind of continue the story? Because that's technically what they did up until Daniel Craig. Like, Pierce Brosnan's Bond is still this same James Bond. They just, by the time Brosnan had taken over, there wasn't much connectivity there. But I think in one of the Brosnans, there's a reference to him being married. Like, if you know the lore. Yeah, Jeffrey Wright is in the new one. So, yeah, I hope they keep him around if they're going to continue that. I always say I would love for them to do it as a period piece for the next ones.
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool.
Like, set it in, like, the 60s or the 70s or something.
Yeah.
That'd probably just be
stop being lazy by modern technology,
Exactly.
That's why those older ones can still be endearing, because they make do with the technology they had at the time, and
yeah, it's one of the reasons like From Russia with Love is one of my favorites.
Yeah,
is just because it is so low tech.
Yeah. And I still think one of the most greatest escape novelty ideas is Living Daylights with the little pipeline tube. They're smuggling. Of all the creative ways to get someone from East Germany into West Germany, that's pretty dope.
Yeah, Living Daylights is so underrated.
Yeah, it is. It totally is.
Dalton in general. I was actually watching Hot Fuzz the other day. And I love Timothy Dalton.
He is so damn good in that.
Yeah, just his introduction, even just I'm a slasher. I've got to be stopped. Like, he is incredible.
The moment he showed up, like, I was completely giddy for it was at that moment that Hot Fuzz had completely, thoroughly, and deeply won me over.
Yeah, I am very excited for Edgar Wright's new movie. I am also very excited to rewatch Hot Fuzz all the time.
Any day.
Like,
I
honestly, I think that might be his peak.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like, good luck ever topping that movie. But yeah, like Dalton was such a good Bond. I would love to. I love GoldenEye. GoldenEye is like my number 2 or 3 Bond movie. So it'd be hard for me to see it without Brosnan, but I would love to have seen what Dalton could have done with that one.
Yeah.
And this wasn't Connery's last.
No.
He had one more technically.
He got one more in him.
And
but this would bring in the age of Roger Moore. It would bring him back to the States with Live and Let Die.
Yeah,
and
that's true. 2 in a row in the States.
And would eventually make Christopher Walken a Bond villain, which, why did it take so long?
And why did it have to be that movie? That's one I need to revisit because, again, that I watched them all in a marathon, and maybe by the time I got to that one, I was just kind of over it.
That's kind of how I was, too. By, like, Octopussy, like, I was kind of done. So I barely remember View to a Kill. And I was like, can we just get to the Timothy Dalton ones already? Please, please, please.
Yep.
Because Spy Who Loved Me is legitimately a good Roger Moore one, but like after that,
it's great. It's his best one.
Yeah, just not interested at all. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I like Octopussy the same way I like this one, and that it's goofy, but it's fun goofy,
Yeah.
like that because that's the one with him dressed as a clown at the end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I feel like once every Bond actor kind of gets to the end of their tenure, they gotta get some silly in there. Mm-hmm. And I guess for Daniel Craig, that was probably Spectre because there's a little bit of stuff in that one.
Oh boy,
but so I'm super glad to hear on a revisit you kind of got more out of it.
It's turned around. I will say it has turned around.
Yeah, it's certainly. Out of, what is it, 24 Bond movies now? Is this new one 24 or 25? I can't remember.
I think it's 25, but who can count these days? Who wants to count?
Like it's certainly in the bottom, but I love every Bond movie except Moonraker to a degree.
Yes. Yeah. They
even,
can be bad, but there can be things that you like about them.
Yeah, and every actor has one. Like even Dalton, who only had 2.
Right.
Like License to Kill is a pretty wild movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Brosnan has Die Another Day. I guess Craig defaults to Spectre because I like Quantum. I don't think that's a bad movie, but it's certainly not silly.
I hated Quantum. It put me off Bond so bad, and I think I don't know. It's just maybe it was just a mistake to have it a direct continuation, but like I just completely couldn't have faked enthusiasm for it, especially coming off of Casino Royale, which I thought was incredible.
I think Quantum, the only reason it is seen the way it is because it's after Casino Royale, which is my favorite Bond movie, and I think a lot of people's favorite Bond movie.
I want to watch it again,
but it's so fucking good. If you watch those back to back, which you got to carve out like 5 hours to do it, I think Quantum is a much better movie for it. Like when you watch it, because like it's all about Bond's character. But I think Quantum is very underrated, and I truly hope people kind of revisit that one.
Well, I'll do it just for you.
Please. Also, it's the shortest Bond movie. It's only an hour 40.
Wow.
Because that one was during the writer's strike. That's why it has the issues it has.
Okay.
Because they were kind of rewriting it on set. But it's also the artsiest Bond movie. I don't know if you've heard this stuff, but if you watch that movie, the 4 major action scenes, I believe 4, are all modeled after the Earth elements. So the first car chase is Earth because they have a car chase in a rock quarry. Then there's a boat chase for water, the plane scene for air, and then the final battle in the hotel is on fire.
Oh god, that sounds pretentious, but
it kind of is. But it totally
for a Bond movie,
very much so. Yeah. There's also like action scenes with no sound, like sound cuts out and it's just music, and it kind of totally works. Like it's interesting because this is a franchise that has never kind of had that kind of pretentiousness to it, but it totally works for that movie. Yeah. And then on top of it, it's kind of like a Bourne movie because that one is definitely the most direct Bourne response.
I can't stop thinking about Casino Royale.
It's so good. It's in my top 5 movies of all time.
Like I always thought like Maverick was the only movie that could get away with just being about a card game, but Casino Royale proved me wrong.
Casino Royale is also like 2 movies in one because like you have the whole opening of that movie up until the airport scene, and that could be like a movie on its own, and then it keeps going and it has an even better second movie.
There have been, I can't count a lot of instances where I've been blown away by something in a theater, but holy cow, how Casino Royale does its gun barrel sequence. It's fucking
Oh my God.
incredible.
I when I first saw that movie, I didn't know it was a fucking Bond movie at first, because like I wasn't super following that stuff, and I just kept seeing the cover on like at like Target and stuff, and eventually I was like, all right, I think I looked it up and I was like, oh, it's a James Bond movie. Well, like let's check this out, and I watched Casino Royale and Quantum in like a weekend, and that Casino Royale just blew me away. And that gun barrel sequence, I was like, oh my God.
Like, I could not believe what I was seeing at that time. Because, like, I mean, the gun barrel sequence have always been my favorite little Bond thing. And to have it done that way was just so fucking cool.
Yeah, putting it in the movie like that, I couldn't believe it. Like something so simple.
And it's such a great way to like, hey, okay, here we're taking Bond in a new kind of interesting direction, and what a way to do it. And oh good, it's on Prime. Sweet. I know what I'm watching tonight.
Oh come on, you don't own it?
I have it on disc, but these days I'm lazy to like have to go over to the thing, pull out the thing, get the disc, put it in the machine.
That's so much work.
Have to walk all the way back to the couch. Forget that the remote was across the room. Have to get back up and then have to go. It's just I'm exhausted just talking about it.
Oh, you're right. What was I thinking?
But yeah, no, I do have it on disc. Yeah.
Amazon bought MGM. That's right.
Oh yeah, because
they have all the.
I'm looking down here.
They have all the Bond movies,
except for you can't stream Skyfall or Spectre, but they do have.
Because I think Sony put those out.
Okay, because here's World is not enough.
Again, I'll defend that one.
I have to say I like World is Not Enough more than Die Another Day.
Oh, absolutely. I think World is Not Enough has a great villain. It's a great plot. Also, one of your first major like female villains, and she's awesome. It's just the Denise Richards thing.
Right, yeah.
But honestly, she's not in the movie that much. So I would argue it's better than people think it is.
I really like Tomorrow Never Dies.
Also, what's his name? Hagrid from the Harry Potter movies.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, he's in GoldenEye and he's in The World Is Not Enough.
Baker's
he's
also
even better.
in GoldenEye.
Yes, he is. And Tomorrow Never Dies. And a villain in the Dalton movie.
Yes. Yes.
Not License to Kill, the other one. Living Daylights. Just the ongoing recasting of actors in this franchise.
Love it. I love it.
At least in GoldenEye and Tomorrow Never Dies, he was the same dude.
Yeah.
But, I love the Bond franchise.
Me too. Me too.
I'm so excited to see the new one tomorrow.
I might. It's been a long time, so I think I might marathon these and then cap it off with go seeing the last one, or the most recent one, I should say.
I'm excited. I'm 12:30 tomorrow. Can't wait.
Very nice. Yeah. But once Dune comes out, I will make that my mission.
Yeah, I'm so excited for Dune.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. But all right. Any closing thoughts on Diamonds Are Forever?
No. Again, I was reluctant to watch it, but came away rethinking my entire worldview about it. So, if that is not growth, I don't know what is.
That's the very definition, and what I was hoping for. And another Shirley Bassey banger to go out on.
Yeah.
Because she did what? Goldfinger, Diamonds Are Forever. Oh, and she did Moonraker, which one of my least favorites.
We can forgive her.
Yeah, because Goldfinger also very good. Yeah. But all right. Thanks for coming back.
Of course,
thanks
thank
for
you.
Chatting Bond.
Yeah, happy to do so.
Yeah. I guess you don't really got nothing to promote, right?
No.
You want to shout out your Twitter or anything?
I mean, yeah, my Twitter's just at librariangmr. Right now, it's just a lot of pictures of miniatures that I'm painting. But hey,
oh, that stuff's so much fun.
If you want to talk to me, that's where I am.
Yeah. Well, all right. Go there and share your favorite Bond stories.
Yeah.
But all right, I thank you for being here, and I want to thank everyone for listening. And go see some Bond movies.
Yeah, go see Bond.